Okay, so I will call this meeting for the Port of Hood River to order at 5:04. Any modification additions to the agenda?
None from staff.
Not from the commission.
Okay. Okay, and then introduction of the Confederate Tribe of the Umatilla Indian Reserve Board Trustee member, is it Corinne? Corinne Sands.
Yes, Corinne is a member of the Board of Trustees and is also the liaison to the Umatilla Fish and Wildlife Committee.
I'm the chair.
You're the chair and you're also the vice chair of CRITFIC.
Correct.
Yeah, so she's very, very influential in this part of the Mid-Columbia region. And we do have a resolution in front of you. And we really wanted to make sure that the Umatilla was represented tonight. And Corinne was nice enough to come down and visit with us. So if you want to have a couple of minutes, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you for having me this evening. And as was said, my name is Corinne Sands and I'm a Board of Trustees member for the Umatilla Tribe as well as the Fish and Wildlife Commission Chair. And on behalf of the Umatilla people, we just wanted to let you know that we are extremely grateful and happy for the opportunity to partner with you guys. It's extremely important that we recognize our usual and accustomed areas in which we fish, hunt, gather, and trade. And since time immemorial, my people have been down here along the banks of the Columbia River doing so. And in 1855, we signed a treaty with the United States government reserving the right to fish exclusively in our usual and accustomed areas in perpetuity. And that's our connection to the entire ecosystem. And so what happens within that ecosystem, which is the Columbia Basin, which where you guys are at, and we just are really appreciative that we were asked about the potential impacts to our tribal fishers. And we feel like this agreement with the bridge toll it helps with not impeding our ability to cross from one side to the other. And so with that being said, I'm just extremely grateful to be a part of this process and hope to build further connection and partnership with the port. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Genevieve was nice enough to make copies of a signed letter from the Confederate Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. And it's signed by N. Catherine Brigham, who's the chair. And so that is in front of you as well. So if you have any comments or questions, the resolution is in your packet. If you want to adopt that, you certainly can do that while Ms. Sams is in attendance.
I would just like to say thank you for your time coming down here. We appreciate it. And I really see a lot of ways that we can really partner together to showcase and preserve. You know, we've even had discussions of way we can honor the tribes in some sort of storyboard on the new bridge, or, you know, so we would look forward to having those conversations with you in the future. So we're excited.
Yeah, thank you for traveling down to visit with us. I'm glad that it works for you. We were so happy to offer it.
Ready for motion?
I'm ready for a motion whenever anyone would like to.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve resolutions 2022-23-6 authorizing non-revenue bridge passengers Confederate Tribe of Umatilla Indian Reservation.
Second.
I'm looking second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair, aye. Vice chair, whatever.
Acting chair.
I possibly get a picture with all.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you mind if we do the same?
Where should we stand?
Good thing you got the turmeric off.
I spilled all over myself right as I was walking out the door.
And I got to meet Mike. So that was.
Commissioner Fox.
I'll take several.
We've got to get one with Kevin in it too.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
You know, it's so great that you're not using film, you're not wasting film, you take 100 pictures. It doesn't matter.
You never delete them.
You never delete them.
Until you run out of them.
Okay, and let's get, Kristen actually developed the resolution with the union, so we should get her in as well.
We'll act like we like.
Yeah, right. That's. Thank you.
All right,
That's
thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Got lots going on.
Take care.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that's the start of a really good.
Yeah.
relationship.
No, that's been a great experience working with them for 5 years, and Kristen's been just starting. I mean, this resolution is really the first step of
Yep.
some
Yep.
big work coming forward with the treaty MOAs.
Yeah,
So,
off to a great start.
good,
Yeah.
that's great.
Okay, next we can move on to the consent agenda. If nobody has anything to discuss or questions, get a motion.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Approve the consent agenda. Review?
No, just,
Okay.
It's presented. I'll take a motion.
okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair, aye. Okay, bridge replacement project update,
Everybody's in Salem testifying
that's very.
this evening. In fact, we were even talking about bringing it up. I think it's
Live
actually
stream.
live stream.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think who's there. I think Commissioner Fox, Mike Shannon, I think Jake Anderson is there, and I think a couple of other citizens from Hood River are testifying as well.
Awesome,
So it's a good first step, and we have a bill for 125 million in front of the legislature. It's going to be a hard lift, but this is the hearing that will allow that committee to hear it. So it's a good first step.
that's fantastic. Best of luck. Okay, presentation discussion items, the bridge capital management plan update, Mr. Mark Libby. Floor is yours.
Oh, good evening.
Move all this stuff out of your way.
Yep.
In your packets was the chart. Do you guys want some hard copies? Well,
I'm okay.
And hopefully you had a chance to see the short memo. There's to give you some background and a little context around it. And from that standpoint, hopefully that was informative, but I'm here basically just to answer good questions you have about it, or unless there's anything specific, John or Kevin, that you want me to speak to.
I think one of the exercises that we were doing this year versus years in the past was really looking very closely at how the bridge timing was affecting that capital plan. And our engineers were asked to look at it with a clean slate. What needs to be done? Forget that there's a new bridge right now. What's next? What needs to be done? And then we factored in, okay, now of those, are we really pushing out anything that we're concerned about? Is there any concerns in that regard? And we went over that list with a fine tooth comb, and we are very comfortable with where things sit. Now, the one thing to consider in this is that there are some projects that there's kind of a cluster out there,
Mhm.
but those don't all have to happen right then and there. When we get to that point, that's time to reassess and then reprioritize those based on maybe changes that happen with the bridge in that period of time, or the fact that they have a pinned down date when the bridge is going to be built, and maybe we just never have to touch some of those. So I just wanted you to know that what's in the plan are things we feel very strongly we have to keep punching away at. That's a lot of the maintenance type items, some spot painting out there ways, just we're trying not to spend money on the bridge, but we also don't want to put, you know, after I'm gone from here, I don't want to leave the port with this big hole to dig out of in maintenance either. So I wanted to be really realistic this year about where we were at and what projects needed to be done. And those were kind of the marching orders given to our engineers this year. And Mark Glibby kind of coordinated all the different, our three different engineers and all the different information that comes from all of them into this report. And I feel pretty comfortable with the way things are lined out in there, and that I don't feel any loss of sleep over where we've put things and how we're sitting. I feel very comfortable about the CIP plan and the maintenance plan for the next 5 years.
It's generally the short term is always what we kind of focus mostly on, right? What's in the next year and then out the next couple of years, are those still reasonable? And then the big stuff that's out there in the distance, well, those are, they're kind of maybe projects to some extent, you know, like the biggest one and probably most impactful would be the painting, the repainting of the bridge. But as I stated in there, unless you're going to maintain the bridge for 30 plus years, that would not be a particularly wise expense because it's a huge dollar amount. And so we did add in the maintenance painting projects that we look to do over the next few years to address those areas that are. And then therein, you know, the uncertainty of when the bridge replacement will really happen, you know, and so, but that's seems to be a more practical and responsible approach to make sure things keep going. If it needs to be 10, 15 years, then, you know, the great thing about steel is that as long as you don't lose section property of it, it maintains its function.
So
Yeah.
the paint isn't integral to the.
Paint is there.
Just for.
Paint is just there as a protective coating. You know, we use weathering steel a lot now on hangers, so you don't have the cost of painting and repainting. And that works pretty well in certain environments and saves a lot of maintenance costs down the road. But the steel, where the steel, you know, the main parts of the truss that are open, they get lots of sun and wind. They don't, you know, really degrade that much. You know, it's like railroad bridges, railroads don't paint. They wait till a thing degrades enough to slap some more steel onto it, which is a little weird because it's not the best way to preserve your bridge, but they just have a very different way of dealing with it. So anyway, and then the, you know, approach spans, you know, replacing those, well, that's a huge impact. You're shutting the bridge down to do that. So that's a huge impact and pretty good cost as well. So you're not going to do that unless you're going to maintain the bridge as is for a considerable period of time, right? And so otherwise there's things on here that are things that aren't on here that will pop up out of either the next inspection or things that just happen, you know, another truck that rips out a bunch of guardrail or those types of things. And we deal with those as they come up and as we're aware of them. So, and then the seismic aspect, which I point out too, is not bridge preservation, you know, per se. I mean, it kind of is, because I mean, if it topples into the river, that's not really preserving it. So, but the expectation is we have the big earthquake that's kind of forecast. Bridge probably isn't surviving that anyway, without a lot more. So your replacement bridge will, so it'll be designed for it. And so again, there's a lot of money for marginal benefits. And so we really try to focus on the things that keep the bridge in operation and keep it from degrading. So, and the other aspects are really improvements, modernizations.
So I was just curious, I know you guys have been working on that small painting project that's going to be coming up in probably the spring. You want to just describe what that?
So we haven't done too much on that yet because we're working on the truss rehab the response to the last inspection.
Oh,
So there's miscellaneous truss repair, and then there's the underwater pier repair projects. We're working on both of those now. Trying to get those, I'm hoping to still be able to get the underwater pier repair out this month still. Working on specs and getting QC reviews and checking done on that. So that's a good one that, that got put off a couple years ago. And I think that's a really good one to have brought back on to do. And then the miscellaneous truss repairs, put that out probably in March or so, again, a spring, early summer repair project. It won't take very long to do the work. And we expect that to mostly be done nighttime bridge closures. There's a lot of access from either a snooper truck on the bridge or things that impact traffic where you really just can't do it during the daytime. And so then the painting one, I did want to be able to get an inspection on the truss where on those last two spans of the trusses, they've had that debris on the top cords for several years that haven't gotten cleaned off.
mhm.
That's the kind of thing that can rot steel. You're sitting there, it holds moisture, it's trapped, it doesn't dry out. And things can degrade pretty quickly in that environment. So that's going to be part of the miscellaneous truss project to get that cleared off. There's a bit on the first span just off of the concrete deck on the Oregon side. And then from the end of the concrete deck coming from the Washington side, it comes out almost the full two spans. Debris, it's coming off the tires.
Comes off the tires,
and
builds
stuff,
up out
you know, and
there.
it
We
just-
don't have a means to get underneath there. The nice thing is, once the debris is gone and we have it removed, we can do maintenance to keep it clean, which can be washing it right from the top deck.
Mhm.
So once we get it back in shape, that'll just be something that'll go on our yearly schedule and.
Yeah.
We'll close for a couple hours and just clean them off once a year after the winter season.
So that's part of it, my thinking there. I did do a bit in the fall of going through all the inspection reports, the fracture critical reports, kind of outlining what information they did have. It's hard to really piece a maintenance painting project just off of inspection reports. And then you need to get out there with some follow-up inspection to try to define the areas, the limits of the painting. So so you're aware, this maintenance painting projects are kind of high risk for cost escalation. Paint contractors are really good with the change order pad, and when it's maintenance painting your area, you're saying it's this much, and real easily it becomes this much because the paint just keeps peeling back. And so when you're abrasive blasting or doing the whole thing, you're doing the whole thing. So, your quantity doesn't grow a lot. What happens there is you get in, you strip the stuff away, and then you find where there's some metal that needs some attention.
That may actually be the first contract I come to you with a range. Because just of that reason, we know it's not gonna come in I can't give you a bid price that says it'll come in at this. It'll be done by the square foot. And I'll give you a range and we'll have a not to exceed number. And then we'll just stop at that point and we'll pick it up again the next year if we have to, so.
Yeah, I don't have the contract dollar amounts, but the last big painting project you did was it like 2012?
Yes.
And it was doing the bottom chord. It started out mostly the northern half, so the spans north of the lift tower. And you added in pretty much all of the south spans, or most of them. I mean, it had to have more than doubled your original contract value. And so there was 6 or 8 change orders or so on that project, and it added a lot of additional tasks and work because they got in and they found things.
Yeah.
The one thing that it helps is once you have a paid contractor out there and you have the access platforms, it's a lot easier to get out and get a good look at things. it's a little costly and time consuming for inspectors climbing around on ropes and stuff
Yeah.
to really nail some of that stuff down. I mean, you can do it, just spend a lot of cost on engineers and design stuff rather than, on the contract side. And so, but once we get them out there with the platforms, we can also kind of dig in a little better. And, pick on their brains up too of how to go about it in a more cost-effective manner for, because they have a lot of cost and time in setting up the work platforms and moving them. And you're doing a little bit of work and you have to move a lot for little bits of work. It really drives the unit price for their work up. So it's still worth doing. You just need to be aware. It's the risky type of project. It can be risky on the cost side. But it's still significantly less than doing the full Monty, then we're in tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
Mark, how would you describe the Pier 6 and 8, the concrete repairs? That's the other one that you're going to be working on. How would you kind of describe that project?
Underwater concrete patching. So those piers have a lot of pretty sizable voids where the concrete is just scoured away. And the pockets are at some places 8, 10, 12 inches deep. More typical is 3 to 6 at spots. We're mainly focusing on areas that are 2 inches or more. But there's some large areas that are, that it gives exposed aggregate a new definition. It's not the type of exposed aggregate that you want, but it's very rough, in that 1/4 to 1/2 inch over almost the whole surface. But it's the large areas that are missing. And so pretty much what they do for that type of repair is you got to clean it. So they use pressure washing, which always cracks me up. It's underwater pressure washing. Seems weird, but it's higher pressure than the flow, right? Or brushes. And in fact, we're going to put in the specs at some of these areas, like don't take high pressure to it if the rocks are just coming out.
Right.
It's from the dive videos. Sometimes the diver was just grabbing a rock and pulling it off with his hands. I mean, it was some of it in that kind of shape. It's just degrading. And, back then they didn't have very good consolidation of concrete. So you'd be common to get a pocket of just big aggregate without much paste around it to help hold it in place. In fact, actually, we had a project like that not too recently. The same thing happened. And so even modern times, you can have those problems. So anyway, so then they will bolt steel plates over the void areas, right, with a seal around there, and then compress that in to make a watertight seal. They have grout ports in the steel plate. So then you displace the water that's in there as you pressure grout. So I have some tubes coming from the barge up on the top that'll displace the water out of it and fill it with the grout. And then you close the ports as you progress your way along. And then how exactly they handle because you can't let the grout come out into the river, right? You have to collect it. And I'm not entirely sure whether or not they actually bring it back to the surface or if they have a means of closing it off there underwater that they can prevent it from getting in the water. So that's from the environmental side, that's kind of really the only risk. And so, but as it stands, the Corps of Engineers says we don't need a permit. We've still been trying to contact ODF and W about, in water work, which we're beyond really that. And so we're assuming we're not bound by in water work window restrictions, since we don't have a permit, but we're trying to keep them. We're trying to engage them anyway so that they know about the project. We just with your guys' replacement project in a way, we don't want any toes being stepped on or people coming back saying, hey, you didn't do this or. But if they don't call you back, it's kind of hard.
There's been quite an effort to get a response. And
You know, I keep bugging the environmental guy.
I think they
well,
just think, no permit, why do
And-
you keep bugging me?
And
But,
so that may be it. It's just,
yeah,
it's not, you know, a priority on
Right.
their end.
right.
So anyway, we think that, that allows it to put them in a better weather zone where, you know, probably doing it in April. Is kind of the hope, and then it's not gonna be quite so miserable on the barge. The divers, I don't think it'll make much difference to them while they're in the water. So anyway, and that's you know, kind of that process as I understand it. There's a little bit of still trying to sort out as far as how we're paying for it and stuff, you know, as far as, you know, on a quantity basis. I mean, basically gonna be lump sum, but how do we capture when it exceeds what they bid on? Because they're gonna get down there and they're gonna come back and say, well, this area is really this big, right? We've put the best we can, the dimensions of the various areas, from going through the dive videos. They're a little tricky to follow, but it's, you know, that they're still gonna have to get down there and say, okay, it's this area instead of that area, and fabricate their plates to fit. So there's gonna be a little bit of them going down to verify. There might be some negotiating for additional costs based on that, because it's not something we can go verify. You know, without another dive team down there to do it, so. And the videos are a few years old now, so there could be some change in some of those areas, but I think it'd be relatively minor, and so. But yeah, no, it's good to be getting that one down. It's something that's out of sight, but it shouldn't be out of mind because the conditions, particularly in Pier 8, are pretty concerning. And so I don't think it's overly critical, but if you don't address it, it will only get worse. Any other?
I was just curious
Question?
when, I can't remember what year the steel decking was replaced last.
Steel decking was it
2000
2010?
2000, I don't think it was that.
I thought it was 8. I think it's 8.
2008.
Yeah, I think it was 8.
Yeah, 2006 might be the
Contract
plans.
engineering
And
firm.
so, yeah, then it's been years.
I feel the work was done in 2000.
So it's not that old. I mean, really, that kind of decking should be a 50-year type of thing.
Yeah, it is.
So, yeah, and you know, and those recommendations that come in the inspection report about replacing it, you're like, yeah, not really. I mean, it's you need to have a lot more problems with your welds cracking than you're
And
having. And
we're
so,
solving it with the way we're welding it for one thing, so we're not going back and fixing things again. So like you're slowly, you're working your way out of it, and since we reduced the speed, and I'm not sure if it's a combination of speed and weight at this point, but I mean, it's night. and
We-
day.
we
Like,
cut
we
the
went from having
estimate-
to weld twice a year to not having to weld this year.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, and getting compliments about how well the deck was holding up by the engineers, so,
We like that.
yeah.
we reduced the frequency in the plan this year to once a year instead of twice a year. And we'll see, you know, over the coming year, you know, and if you raise the loads back up, then we'll see if that.
So what's the, can you give a preview on the load raising and?
So ODOT has reviewed our supplemental load rating. They had a few questions. We answered those. They said, okay, we're good with that. And they should be issuing you a letter
Yeah.
for revising the loads back up to what we had suggested. And so basically it gets everything back, essentially what it was, except now one of the, was it the EV3 truck would
Right.
still be restricted.
Which I don't think is a big deal.
Who knows what the hell an EV3 truck is anyway, right? I mean, you don't have, it's not one of your customers. It's.
Not
you know,
a big truck.
So it won't necessarily.
Possibly like fire departments crossing. for
But
various
it's-
things, would
it's,
be
you know.
restricted to not carrying a full tank of water, that type of thing.
It's the super heavy dump truck type
Mhm.
stuff, you know, it's just, there's very short axle spacing and very high axle load, so it's a bridge buster. So, but the others, you know, then they're back up your basic truck back up to the 40 ton.
So and you, we're gonna, Mark's coming back out.
Yeah, well, he'll actually be meeting us on Zoom at our
Okay.
next meeting. And hopefully we'll have our letter in hand by that point and we can have a discussion about that.
Okay,
So, and then that just authorizes, you know, it removes their restriction. And
Right.
gives you the authorization to then do,
What-
then it's, you know, then you're authorized to do whatever you want to do with it.
okay, thank you so much. And then are you also doing the wire replacement update?
No, that's me.
Well, that's you.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm gonna keep this one really short and sweet. We have a date scheduled and I'm sure you've seen the announcements. That's May 19th through the 22nd. There will be work all the way through that month in single lane closures as they get ready to set the counterweights on this jacking system that's up there. So it'll be an exciting project to watch. I love this kind of stuff. We already have it worked out with the Coast Guard that we'll have a lift closure through that period. They're way more understanding with us than they are with most bridge operators, so we have a really great relationship with them. Basically, we just tell them that we're inoperable, give them the dates, and they're like, they post the announcements. That's not what it's like with other bridges in Portland. Let me put it that way. They don't have that luxury. Genevieve's got the announcements out and we're getting some feedback, but I think, you know, the outreach that Genevieve did to the community was phenomenal and this just is one of those things, we can't get it right. I mean, we can do our very best, but we can't get it right, you know, so we're gonna make somebody mad and somebody's event's gonna be wrecked and, you know, that's just the way it is. We just,
What's your timing for that one?
May 22nd, 19th through the 22nd.
And there's no weather that can stop.
That's
you.
correct.
That's not
It's
what.
actually written into the contract that weather's not an excuse.
Good.
And if I remember correctly, I believe it's $10,000 in liquidated damages on the hour that they don't complete. Now, other projects that the same company has done recently, which were in Portland on one of the Portland bridges, had 4 times as many cables as ours did, and they did it in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
So I'm having, I'll just leave it at that. I love it when I can come in and say, golly, we got off there a whole day early. But we'll see if I can make that happen. Of course, that's, you know, the contractor's goal is to get it done and get off of there as well, so.
Just so you guys know what the conflicts are, you know, we called around and made sure there were no transportation related conflicts. We have fielded a lot of questions about the Dow's Bridge. And Dow's Bridge will, according to ODOT, not be closed on the weekends beyond March, I think, or February. So that won't be a conflict. And the Port of Cascade Locks has confirmed the Bridge of the Gods will be open. That, you know, as you know, it doesn't mitigate the traffic impacts. It just kind of spreads the traffic jams to the Dows and Cascade Locks, especially when we were closed for those 3 days last year. Cascade Locks was completely jammed the whole time. The only school conflict that we found was that Hood River Valley High School prom is that weekend. So Stephanie Hoppy is going to make sure that the bridge closure is in the school newsletter and everybody knows to plan their transportation for prom. That way there is an endurance bike ride that weekend that will be affected by the closure, but we're hoping everybody has enough notification to plan their time. The only other conflict, if we don't if we don't finish up a day early, that Monday is Victoria Day, which is the day we usually get our first wave of Canadian visitors. So there may be some disruption for recreation businesses that weekend. But so far compared to closing in June, it's much better timing and we'll start the ports electronic signs will start notification pretty much tomorrow morning. And we'll just let that run. So if you cross the bridge in the next 2 months, you will have hopefully seen that. And then the ODOT and the WashDOT freeway bridges will post notification of the closure. We've already sent it to Trip Check, so it will be on the Trip Check database map when get closer to the closure too. So I think we've gotten the word out as much as we possibly can. So we'll continue to post reminders. Our email list is now 35,000 recipients strong, and they'll get multiple reminders.
And on those email reminders, is it like I know like MailChimp?
Yeah,
You can
it's-
see how many how many
Yes.
people opened it and.
Right, yeah,
And so
that
you're getting
first-
good.
Yeah,
clicks
exactly.
and readership. Okay.
Yeah, that first 35,000, we had 14% open. So
Okay.
not very many. So you have to send multiple
Mhm.
people, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully not get too many unsubscribed so that, they exit the system, but it's a balance and so.
Okay.
I was just thinking, John, for the truss repair project or the miscellaneous ones. Probably want to think about when we target that for. and
Yeah,
not
stay away
too-
from June.
Right.
So,
Right.
because I didn't know that you do it before. Or if it's too close to it, then is that a bigger issue? or-
Yeah, I
don't
think
know.
something we probably ought to talk about in house.
Yeah, think about that a little bit, and what other things are going on and figure out like what's. Should we look at that a little later or? Just let me know, but. timing.
I'll call you, we'll talk about kind of like the procedure you see in your mind for that and what they might need on the bridge. Maybe that's just single lane closures possibly, so,
Or if it could be nighttime work.
yeah.
I'm thinking it's mostly nighttime work, just because your access is,
Right,
it's almost all over the rail or from underneath.
absolutely.
So a little
Full
challenging.
bridge Closure at night, that would be better.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking, so, yeah, kind of like the last one, where
Yep.
they were out there and, because they're all over the place,
Right.
it's one spot here, one spot there. And so, yeah, you've gotta move around.
Yep.
Okay, anyway, all right,
Thank you, Mark.
thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Greenwood, Executive Director report.
Well, I don't think I have anything other than what's in the report itself. I did get a few questions about the TCB proposal that was in there. And that's for the night security. And so one of the things that we were talking about today is, with everything going on with the pressure on downsizing and, looking at bridge replacement and the possible need to assist in helping fund some of that activity, we have to be really careful about incurring new expenses. But staff really does feel that we can take a look at last year's budget and pull from some of those budgeted items to make up this difference. So I think, we're gonna need to do a full procurement because of the size of the amount. And I'm assuming it'll probably be for more than 1 year. So, but we'll show you where we're actually making up the difference by reducing other line items in the budget.
And I would really like you to meet a couple of these companies and maybe that presentation is something we have them come in and talk to you about.
Okay.
Even before they turn in a bid, so you can maybe ask some questions but I know that Daryl and I both feel the security issues here on the port properties are just absolutely out of control. We've had 3 break-ins back here in the last 2 months. Vehicles are getting broken into at various properties. It's just a different place than it used to be, and there's some things that a security company that was working a regular 8-hour day every day of the week could provide for us. And we wouldn't be putting employees in the position of having to go enforce
Mhm.
court policies when there's dangerous things. Just nice to have somebody with a badge and a gun to straighten that out if need be, you know, I'm just saying. That the authority is a really great thing to have, and we've just grown to the point. Most courts do this, and I think we've grown to the point where we just have to accept that we need somebody in that role here, and as much as I'd like to say that we get all the help from the city, they help us anytime we ask. But I don't know that the patrols are regular enough to help us. We need somebody focused on our properties and our assets.
Yeah, I remember that we were cleaning up some of our ordinances so that we could have better working relationship with the city. Where are we at on that? Has that been completed? Are we?
No, I think it's probably on the to-do list, just
Okay.
with the transition.
Yeah,
for Legal
I think-
counsel.
Probably want to make sure we pick that back up, because it would be nice to have some better continuity.
Yeah. I think towing, I think that was one of the issues that maybe needed to be tightened up.
Right.
The ability to tow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can make it, I think if the commission feels that that's a priority, I think we can find it in the budget. And so we will quantify that. We'll actually show you how
Okay.
we can do that. And then if you're interested, we certainly could have Mike come out from TCB and present.
It'd be nice to prevent some vandalism instead of having to clean up after it.
Mhm.
all the
So
time.
is that gonna be a topic for budget meeting?
It will be.
Okay. It's gonna be a line
Yeah,
item.
it will be, and
Okay.
it would be. I think it would be good for us to at least decide whether you think that's a direction we might want to look,
Mhm.
and let's get some contractors bidding on this. I'll be totally honest that I've, for 2 years, have searched for companies to come talk to us. And they don't even return the calls.
Right.
TCB is the very first one who ever returned the calls, came and spoke with us. They do government is all they do. They do ports. They have a dispatch of their own, and which could take over all that call answering that we have to do. It would eliminate port staff from having to bill time for answering calls of, can you fix my breeze by on the emergency phone? So they would start dispatching to us. Their patrol officers can deal with marine emergencies. They have pumps and all those types of things in their vehicle. They know how to take care of a port. And their reputation is very, very good.
And we'll be checking with our insurance to see if that affects our insurance policy for the better.
It's good. That's a great point, Christie. It probably will. Yeah, it probably will.
You know, what I want to add is I think we really need to work with our new legal counsel. And it's one thing for us to implement a plan, but if we can't enforce it. And so I think if we do choose a security company, we need to have our legal counsel work hand in hand with them. So we're presented with things that we can actually enforce.
Mhm.
You know,
Absolutely.
because, you know, that's just money down the drain if you don't.
Yeah.
And she gets frustrated, we get frustrated.
We don't want you
When
frustrated.
they send the wrong. So, anyway. And that's the same thing with the city police and stuff in counties, is that, you know. There's a fine line there, whose authority overlaps who, and
Mhm.
everything else, so we gotta be really careful as a board that we do. Make motions that,
Very clear cut.
yeah, that are legal and enforceable.
So that, I don't know, I guess, we can ask at the next meeting when we have more than 3 here, but. You know, I don't know, we could have Mike come to, you know, the spring. Kind of the, you know, budget review process and have them do a little presentation at the beginning of that work session, might be one way to. You know, because it could probably go, probably too long for a regular meeting.
They can be efficient to have Zoom.
Yeah, they could just, yeah, that would
Just
be
get an
fine.
introduction for us to ask some questions maybe, or just get a show for them.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Might be a little bit easier for them to budget, or not budget, but schedule.
okay, and then, I think everything else is pretty self-explanatory in there, unless you have any questions.
Did you need consensus for the CPACE letter?
Yeah, So the CPACE, it's basically a private sector financing tool that counties have to authorize.
Mhm.
And so Deschutes County is the most comparable county to Hood River. This actually has come out of the Port of Cascade Locks. Mark Johnson has drafted the letter. So basically, our letter would look something like that. So if there's consensus to proceed, I can certainly draft that up, sign it, and get that to the county.
Yeah, I don't foresee a problem with that, as far as the funding for CPACE. Yeah, we've never used it in the past, but it may be something we want to look at, but definitely support them.
Yeah, it's more of a support thing and just another tool in the bag for
Yeah.
people that are, ports and others that want to have a financing mechanism.
It's a totally different pay format. Or
Yeah.
pay to back,
Yeah, it comes on your tax bill.
exactly, versus a monthly payment. Yeah, it's a whole different concept.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That's it. Thank you.
Is there any commissioner or committee reports? I didn't have a report, but I did have one thing I wanted to bring up, that we could discuss is now that we're kind of talking about moving forward on the Anchor Way project, we're discussing the possibilities of waterfront and the new land of the redesign of First Street and just all of our waterfront properties. Do you guys think it would be an appropriate time to form kind of an ad hoc advisory committee that would focus on possibly researching what community centers around the country are successful, what is working in towns of this size and nature, what kind of lands are necessary, and just I've had a lot of community members reach out to me saying that they would love to be a part of something like that, and maybe we could just formulate a little committee. Ben mentioned that he would be happy to sit on it and be the commissioner on it, and so I just wanted to see if you guys thought that was a good idea.
Great idea.
Yeah, I think it's probably an idea that we should present to all five though.
Okay.
But.
Yeah, I
don't
did.
foresee a problem, but.
Yeah, I did, in talking with Ben, just organizing the meeting, I did ask him if I could bring that up in here, and he said that would probably be an appropriate thing to
Sure.
do. So maybe that could just be on the to-do list for the next meeting.
Sure.
Okay, that's all I have to report. Oh, except for I did go to the Visit Hood River, and everything is seemingly doing fantastic in Hood River, like as far as the percentages and numbers and visitors and hotel stays and everything, so.
Occupancy rates.
Yes. Looking good, okay. So without that, we've got some action items here. Greg, would you like to take that away?
Certainly. Good evening, commissioners. Both of our action items this evening are formalities in nature, since we discussed them in our November 15th planning session. And at that time, the directive was for staff to pursue both of these RFPs. And in honor, I should say, in respect of trying to get Commissioner Gehring to senior night, I won't bore you with long-winded explanations of either of them, since we've discussed them at length. But I'm happy to answer. Happy to answer any questions.
Sir.
Are you graduating tonight or? Not a girl. Stick with it.
With that being said, happy to answer any questions you may have of either of the action items.
Rigger, this is one of your better projects you've done.
Yeah.
I was real pleased, to be honest with you.
Sir,
Yeah, so
it's always a team effort.
Okay, but like I said, it's your name's on the top, so. But as I read it, there's a lot of caveats that I thought was cross-referencing, and it covered us,
Yeah,
which I'm really pleased with. So, job well done, you and your staff or whoever put it together.
does anyone have any questions for Greg? Any questions?
Not at
Okay,
all.
can I get a motion for action item 7A?
Madam Chair, I'll make an application for the business organ for planning and marketing plan for the Lower Hill site and analysis feasibility study in the amount of $50,000.
Any discussion? And if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And how about the second one of the RFP for Anchor? If I could throw that in.
I think it's exciting, to be honest with you.
I know.
Curious to see what's gonna come out of it. Yeah, so it should be exciting. The whole different perspective we're going for now in the different times.
Yeah.
Good.
Any questions for Greg on that one? Seemed pretty straightforward to me. If not, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve issuance of a request for proposal for civil engineering design services for the East Anchor Way extension and North First Street realignment project on legal and administrative review.
Ben second by proxy, no. I will second that.
So you're just like, okay, all, any discussion? And if not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes. Good job.
Yeah.
Any commission call?
I just have one, I was approached by a Rotarian from the Dalles and asked us if we could possibly have a representative go to Rotary in the Dalles and have a presentation about the state of the port of Hood River. And I said, we just had one here in Hood River, and I'm sure that our ED would love to do that.
So I just gotta remember to change the date.
And so,
So you just threw him under the
so
bus.
exactly, but he was aware of it about 30 minutes ago, I told him. And then also too, I told the individual that they're looking for different topics during lunch at Rotary. And I said that maybe the ODOT historical trail would be another one for them.
Oh, that'd be
But I
good.
asked Kevin to give the Rotarian the information for ODOT.
Perfect.
Thanks, Kevin, appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Are there anything for me?
Oh, I was just gonna ask Greg, that RFDI for
North Apron?
North Apron, what's the deadline? on
Yeah, I believe it's the end of March.
Okay.
Still have some time.
Want to make sure everyone would be able to submit their stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Okay, and I don't have anything to add. So, confirmation of commission directives to staff. We have a list. Anyone taking notes?
We have the directive to discuss the possibility of the ad hoc committee for the waterfront.
And
That was the one
also,
directed. To get that maybe in front of us for the next meeting.
Perfect.
It's something that we talked to all the commissioners about, but move forward with wrapping our heads around. You know, what you guys might want to see for that and what we could do to facilitate that.
Perfect.
then also to a Zoom meeting with the security. Yeah.
And then we'll follow up on the CPACE letter. And I will talk to the guy at the Dalles Rotary.
All right, that being said, I think there's no executive session tonight, so I believe that we can adjourn. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Good job,
everybody.
guys.
100 hours.
Heather, Heather. Car running.